This is scaling comprehensive public benefit screening via API with the NYC Mayor's Office for Economic Opportunity. I'd like to give a special shout out to Internet Society of New York for recording this session. I'm Song Hea. I'm a product manager with the team.
And I'm Kimberly Peng. I'm a developer on the team.
So today, we're going to introduce you to our office and what we do. We'll share something that we'll be opening for you to use and taking you through how it works today. And to wrap up, we're going to try and exercise and have plenty of space for discussion. So to set the stage, NYC has roughly 8.5 million residents. About 20% of New Yorkers live in poverty, and about 45% of New Yorkers live in near poverty. That's roughly 65% of the population. These numbers are approximate and come from NYC-specific poverty thresholds from 2015. Through our office's research, we've learned that public benefits reduce the poverty rate. Here's a few examples of how some programs have made impact. This area of public benefits and services intersects a lot with our work at the Mayor's Office for Economic Opportunity. We're a multidisciplinary team of about 70 people. We bring together skills in research, program development, policy, evaluation, data integration, service design, and product development to reduce poverty and broaden opportunity for New Yorkers. Over the past 3 years, we've built our digital products practice through hiring designers, product managers, developers, and we've been working with residents and public servants and nonprofit providers. To date, the digital product team is 8 people strong. We're prototyping, developing, maintaining, and conducting outreach for public-facing web applications, as well as internal tools. We believe that government products should be built with the people who use them and the people who maintain them, so that they provide value and are sustainable. You may have heard the saying that digital products are never really finished, only abandoned. That they are respectful of people's dignity and time. That they are usable, that they enable people to solve a problem with them. And accessible in terms of understanding, using plain language over unnecessary jargon, in terms of language access, and follow good practices like web content accessibility guidelines. That they should be delivered and tested sooner than later. This means starting small with a focus on learning and adjusting over extensive planning and building. That they should be open rather than closed, where possible, leveraging cost-efficient and interoperable technologies, and documenting and sharing this work for other people to use and benefit from. Our product portfolio includes Access NYC. It's a front door to public benefits programs available in 11 languages. It features a 10-step benefits screener that screens for 31 different programs, as well as comprehensive information on how you can apply, the required documentation, how to receive assistance, walk-in centers for over 40 programs. We started experimenting with versions of this benefit screener for outreach and caseworkers, who can then use it on behalf of other residents and assist them through the process of navigating this. Growing Up NYC is a resource to learn about the services and activities and resources that the city offers for families, and it's available in English and Spanish. Its sister site, Generation NYC, provides resources for teens and young adults on topics related to school, work, finances, health, counseling, and LGBTQ resources. And to bring it all together, program information for these products goes through our editorial review process with all of our partners from over 15 different governmental agencies and gather content, which is our system of record for program information. This includes translations for many programs. And this is pulled into our different products, which are all WordPress sites. We then make this public benefits information available as a data set on NYC Open Data. If you were here about 2 years ago, we shared a little bit more information about this process through a talk on human-centered content APIs. And then the screening guidelines are all maintained and updated by our team and the same network of liaisons and implemented in our rules engine, which is built on the business logic platform rules, which basically just makes calculations. Which brings us what we'll demo for you today. The NYC Benefits Screening API. We believe that there's no wrong door to public benefits, that regardless of how or where you're navigating public benefits, whether through the government or a community organization, that you have the information to make an informed choice and that open beats closed. We spent a lot of time establishing a working model for screening and maintaining all this information and updating our products with many governmental partners, so hopefully you don't have to unless you really want to. This is an open API and documentation, all related to public benefit screening. Anyone will be able to sign up for access, and developers will be able to use it to do things like send household composition information, data like household members, family members, expenses, income to a rules engine, and receive screening results. This will enable the creation of new benefits-related tools and enable screening to happen against any existing data sets of benefit seekers. We'll release this soon and share how you can be the first to know when it's open and available and receive access. So here's an inventory of the public benefits that we've built the infrastructure to screen for. Again, as we maintain and make efforts to keep this up to date, we typically target updates on a quarterly basis. And as we continue to add additional public benefits programs to this infrastructure, this will be documented and available through our API. So some background about how this came to be. Through the process of developing screener tools for Access NYC, we asked a few guiding questions like, what barriers do New Yorkers face when seeking information or applying for assistance? And how might we improve the digital experience of navigating this? New York City government is complicated. That might be an understatement. And through our research and interviews, one of the themes that emerged was that even the expert benefits navigators were uncertain of all the steps and criteria, especially as these policies change. Many navigators have very deep expertise, but the landscape of benefits is immense. This informed our work aiming to consolidate and simplify comprehensive information and screening. On the left, you can see what the screening experience looks like for Access NYC. It's a step-by-step process with up to 10 different questions. And on the right, you can see a tablet-optimized version we've developed with caseworkers so that they can go through this process with a client and collect contact information for operational processes and follow-up. And here's how we're presenting those screening results. On the left, again, is the public-facing Access NYC, and benefit seekers can text or email themselves their screening results to take action against later. And on the right is the caseworker edition, which has a lot more information up front so that, again, the caseworkers can spend more time navigating and comparing and reviewing this information with their residents. And here's how the different questions in our screener map to the rules engine to make calculations for specific benefit screening. It's pretty complicated, to say the least. We'll be sharing an early version of this documentation with our API release, and we've got a few printouts if you're interested in getting a copy. And to dive into how the technical infrastructure, the screening criteria, and the API all fit together, I'm going to hand it off to Kim.
Is that Solver?
Excuse me?
Is that Solver from like Excel?
No, this is just Google. This is just Google spreadsheets.
Oh.
Great. Thanks, Song. So the screener on Access NYC is powered by a very complex infrastructure of Amazon Web Services. Inside this network is the Rules Engine API that was built using the screening guidelines for the 31 benefits and programs that were highlighted before. They include programs like SNAP, NYC, and cash assistance. When a user submits data to the screener, it gets passed to the rules engine where the logic will calculate screener program codes. The codes are sent back to Access NYC, populating a user-specific view that will allow them to save their results or find out more information about the programs and benefits they might be eligible for. We took the existing infrastructure of Access NYC and we opened it up for the Benefits Screening API. This allows users, any users, the ability to leverage the screening calculator for their own use cases, whether it's screeners, databases, or workflows. We implemented the latest standards and specifications for this RESTful API, designing and developing it with security in mind and ensuring that it's available and maintained. When a user sends data to the API, it goes through a different set of Amazon Web Services that include API Gateway and Lambda functions to hit the rules engine. While both Access NYC and users of the screening API will receive a set of program codes, the key difference is that users of the screening API will receive not only the program codes, but a human-readable program name that's been extracted from the Benefits and Programs API on Open Data Portal. That means the response is easy to navigate and understand. When the screening API is officially launched, it will be supplemented with thorough documentation. The documentation includes terms of service, screening guidelines, data request structure, sample code and starter kits, as well as resources for support. The API has 6 endpoints. As a user, you will receive a username, a password, and an API key. You'll need these items to make requests to these 3 core endpoints. The auth token endpoint takes your username and password to generate an authorization token. The eligibility programs and bill submission endpoints use that token to determine the validity of you as a user to make requests to those endpoints. In this curl command, it generates an alphanumeric token, which we'll use for the other endpoints. So let's take this token and build our first request. So this is a sample household, but let's build one together. In the API documentation, we've created a request builder that can help you construct a data object that you can use for the eligibility programs endpoint. In this builder, you'll just populate the form to generate a JSON object, which you'll pass to the endpoint. So let's build a household together. How many people are in this household? Someone throw out a number. 5, 7, 5?
6.
Let's go with 4 for now.
Yeah, 4.
Yeah.
4 seems like a good number. How much money does this household have on hand? Liquid cash.
45,000.
45,000? We'll see. We'll find out.
We'll find out.
What is this household's living situation? Are they renting? Are they an owner, staying with a friend, living in a hotel, a shelter, or do you prefer not to say? Renting? What kind of rental are they renting?
Let's go with market rate.
Market rate?
Not regulated.
All right, so we said 4 people in this household. What's the first person's age? If you guys aren't going to throw it out, I'm going to just put numbers. All right. Is this person the head of household? Let's say they are, and that they're on the lease. Do any of these criteria match for this 35-year-old?
Unemployed.
Unemployed. And unemployed for the last 18 months? Let's assume yes. Receiving any benefits? Let's say
45,000 in the bank.
Do they have an income?
Let's keep it 0.
Keep it 0, all right.
0.
All right, let's remove that. There is no income.
Yeah.
Any expenses? Let's say there's 500 in rent.
That's a great idea.
And they pay it at a month, every month. So we're gonna add the other 3 people in the household, and I'm gonna just do this really quickly.
Yeah, let's keep it.
Let's do the child. We don't have to fill out anything. A 1-year-old probably doesn't have any of these things. We're adding another person. Let's say this is 16. Another child. It's a student, full-time, no income, mooching off the parents. And let's do one more. And let's say this is 40. And it's a spouse. Unemployed. Remove all these things. Now that we have our household of 4 members, we're going to generate the JSON object. Boom. We're going to use this object that contains the 4 household members to make a request to the eligibility program's endpoint. You can attach this to a curl command, but in the API documentation, we've actually provided a Postman Collection that makes it a lot easier to send requests to the API. So let's just open that up. This is what the collection looks like. I'm going to navigate to the basic request under eligibility programs. I'm going to go to the body, and I'm going to replace this with the object we just created. And I'm going to click send. Cool. So if the request is successful, you'll see something that says success, yay. And then you'll see a list of codes and program names. Let's hit that again. Uh-oh. Program names that are associated with those program codes. So this household of 4 members earning with $45,000 cash in hand is potentially eligible for summer meals, special supplement nutrition program, family planning, this entire list of potentially eligible programs. So that household has been screened. Oops.
And is there like an API with the information about each program?
Yes, so in our API documentation, we actually list out what all those values mean, along with the eligibility criteria. Oops. So just to recap, we sent a JSON object containing household information to the eligibility programs endpoint, and we got a JSON in return containing the codes and program names for the benefits that the household may be eligible for. But what if you're an API user who already has a collection of household data on hand, either in a database or somewhere in an application, and you want to submit all that data in one go? We have the bulk submit endpoint. With this endpoint, users can send household data in CSV format to get a CSV in return detailing each household screening results. In order to successfully use this endpoint, each row in your CSV must represent one household with their appropriate columns populated for each member of that household. In our API documentation, we've provided a valid CSV to get you more familiar with the data structure. So in this example, actually we can do this example. I'm going to navigate to the basic request under the bulk submission endpoint in the Postman Collection that's in the API documentation. I'm going to go to the body. I'm going to select a file. Select file. If I can select a file. I'm going to choose my CSV, and I'm going to click send. So if your request is successful and your household information has been structured correctly in your CSV, you'll see that there are the same number of rows in the response. And it'll tell you whether or not that household information was valid, along with either error messages or potentially eligible program codes. So in this case, the first household in that CSV is potentially eligible for SYEP, EITC, SNAP, etc. So that was the auth token, the eligibility programs, and the bulk submission endpoints of the screening API. Some key notes about the API is that it's coming soon. It's an open API, which means that anybody can get access to it. It screens households for potential eligibility for benefits and programs. It comes with very thorough documentation along with sample code, and it's actively maintained and supported so that we can build with you. I'm going to pass it over to Song to get you started on the exercise.
Now, I want to ask you for your help. We'll have some time for discussion and questions, but I'd like for us to try something. This API is an experiment, and I think we've been thinking about this a lot and thinking very specifically about specific narrow use cases. And we would love to think a bit more expansively and learn from all of you and get some ideas. I want to try out this experiment. For the next 3 minutes, I'll keep time. Can we try brainstorming some ideas or answers to some of these prompts? After that, I'll ask that you all share out and discuss your ideas with maybe the 1 or 2 people next to you. And at the end of about 10 minutes in general, I'd love for us to be able to share some initial themes or takeaways as a group. So some of these prompts are, how might you solve problems with this kind of API? How might you develop new tools for benefits navigators in different contexts? Or what other forms of communication, input, or emerging technologies could be used for people to screen? I read yesterday that Microsoft 365 will now let you, or soon let you add data from a photo directly into Excel tables, which is kind of interesting. So what we've done is we've got some sticky notes at the end of the tables and some pens. And I'll set a time, but I just want to challenge everyone to generate as many ideas as they can, and then we'll break out and share with individual groups, and then maybe share out a few ideas at the end. All right. I'm wondering if there's any group that would like to start by sharing any ideas or themes or takeaways that they discussed over the past couple minutes. I'm going to start over here.
Sure. So one of the things that I was thinking about, if I qualify for, say, 10 different programs, is figuring out how to case manage all of those programs. So I wonder if there's a really interesting opportunity to build a kind of CRM or case management platform on top of this that I can track my progress as I apply to each one, because keeping track of all that's going to be a pain, Yeah.
That's a good point. Any groups that would like to go next?
Sure. Some of our ideas back here. One major theme that came up amongst our group was creating a tool that community organizers or people in the community kind of apart from government organizers or the local government could use to help people in the neighborhood determine which benefits they were eligible for, with the idea of just getting somebody that those kind of end users would trust to provide this information to and kind of trust to guide them through it. And then with that, in cases where there are social workers or caseworkers, creating a system that would automatically take all of the family information that they presumably already have in some system and put it into your system so that they would get a list with all of the families they're working with and know which benefits those families were eligible for without having to create a separate profile in the system. And then the last thing was using census data to maybe mark neighborhoods that have large percentages of people with possibly eligible for some of these benefits, and then seeing other ways to bring that eligibility to the people so that they know, or seeing if there's kind of unmet needs in particular areas of the city.
That's great. Thanks for sharing. We're thinking about some of those ideas and how we can facilitate them right now. Yeah.
So you're collecting some great information about the families that are out there that need these services. And I'm thinking about expanding the scope into things like grants for small businesses, opening up, and maybe scholarships. You're asking if they have children that are students. Mm-hmm. So figure out what scholarships are out there that they may be eligible for to help them go to higher education. Housing lotteries, healthcare benefits. A lot of people don't know what is out there that they can subscribe to. Transit benefits and everything that the city offers. So maybe creating a profile that they can keep updated and that can always alert them to new opportunities as they come up, so they don't have to keep visiting the site.
Yeah, those are great ideas. At the moment, the screening tools we've built are fairly lightweight in terms of the things that we ask from people. There's no login. We don't ask any really personal questions about things like citizenship status, but those are interesting ideas for us to connect with people without as much.
And I know a lot of that data can be sensitive, and that's why with like an NYC, they have a database, and they have a kill button. If somebody like ICE comes asking, you have somebody just...
Yeah, we have been talking a little bit with NYC, and it's been very interesting to learn from them about how they've developed relationships with residents and the degree of trust and the sense of risk that's very palpable that's at stake. But they're very interesting questions for us to think about as well. Anyone else would like to share on this side? Sure.
Yeah, we talked about if like the eligibility screening could be incorporated into other sort of processes where people are providing this information anyway. So I don't know, also on taxes or applying for enrollment control programs, like, hey, did you know you're also eligible for such and such?
Yeah, that's great. Like making that opportunity available where this information is already being collected to a certain degree for a specific context. Yeah. Back there, it seemed like there was a lot of animated discussion going on at that last table. I'd love for you to share some of your themes or ideas that have emerged.
I mean, I only wrote one question down, and it was more like, I think this is a really great tool, particularly the ability to sort of batch screen people through CSV. I'm a data nerd myself. I'm sure most people in this room are, but my question was more about for service providers and community-based nonprofits, are there certain barriers around data literacy or programming that would make it difficult for them to use this tool? Like, I'm going to use an example, and I hope no one from the Department of City Planning is here. But for example, like I use their geographic batch address translator pretty regularly. It took me days to figure it out because they have very extensive documentation that is entirely written in computer and not for like humans to use if they aren't already programmers. So I was just wondering in terms of like what sort of support you could be providing to smaller organizations that might not have data people or programmers on staff to make sure they do use this.
That's a really good question. We've built a technical product that requires a degree of knowledge and expertise to make practical use of this tool, and how can this be supported? Great. Yes.
So you generate a list of eligible or potentially eligible programs, but do you provide links then to where you start to apply for those?
So within this specific API itself, as of today, it really returns those screening results. We have a separate API called the Benefits and Programs API that has comprehensive, detailed information written in plain language about how you can take the next steps of application, the methods of application, whether it be by like fax, or if there's like a PDF you have to download and mail in somewhere, or if there is an online form. So in theory, like you could build something, if you want to produce a solution, you could leverage that API as well. Right.
So you have this unified API for potential eligibility. Are you looking at creating one API or forum for actually applying, like a common application that as sections as needed for whatever your potential.
That is a great question, and it is something that our team is exploring. How might we provide resources for better application development? It is a complex question to ask. How can we create a common application, as it's not necessarily just a technology solution. But our team is experimenting with lightweight online application frameworks that might be able to be used by city agencies. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so I was just thinking about all these programs are social benefits, but do you look at where they break and like how people actually use these programs to get out of poverty? So if you hit a certain dollar amount and you lose all, like if you earn another $100 and then you lose $5,000 worth of benefits, the programs aren't really helping you get out of poverty. Like as you make more income, the programs should slowly drop off. And have you looked at that, like between all the programs and seeing are there dollar amounts that they might be hurting someone that you make more than? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. What you're talking about is the idea of the benefits cliff. As you get to a certain level, you become ineligible, and there's a lot of complex interactions between different benefits. It is a complex question. It is something that we're exploring as our team in the larger Mayor's Office of Operations is working on a comprehensive benefits access report. We're working with some great partners to explore some of these interactions. And I've also talked to one team out of the Blue Ridge Labs program that has been doing some research around that specific problem as well.
Yeah, I had thought that too, and it seemed like that could be something that this tool could be used for, is to think about if you're like in the zone of the benefits cliff or sort of exploring that space of interaction. You could actually programmatically use this to sort of explore the space of what happens when you change these parameters.
Thanks. Yes. I just had a question. So I know the benefits for the individual mimics what is basically an API experience of what you normally do to the Access NYC site. Is this sort of batch import? Is that something that can also be done through web interface, or is that API?
At the moment, right now, it is through the API. It is an interesting idea to develop a web interface for someone to just be able to upload a CSV in the right format. At the moment, we are exploring this idea more within the city, and how can we facilitate that on behalf of other agencies for the time being. But it's something that we're definitely looking at for just an internal tool, and potentially it is a good idea for how we might be able to offer that.
Another question, is it saving data that gets inserted, or is it purely just processing it and giving you information back?
We are saving the data that is sent in our database and logging that information. We are not collecting, requesting, saving any separate information that might be related to pieces of information like PII, for example. And a lot of that will be clarified once we have the API available and open to the general public and in our terms of service and all.
That's it.
I was wondering if you were keeping track of whether or not your API was being accessed a screen reader to see how what kind of assistance or accessibility you needed to provide information on that, and if there's plans to keep track of who's using the screen reader.
That's a great question. We haven't thought about that. It's a question that we've thought about with regards to our public-facing products. We haven't actually come across a good solution for being able to tell if someone is using a screen reader. We have some general sense of proxies, are people making other types of adjustments on the site, like making text bigger or using a different language. But if you have some ideas, I'd love to talk with you more about how we might be able to think about that.
It seems like probably a lot of these programs are ones whose eligibility requirements are set by the state or potentially federal. Do do you think there's potential for your API to be used by other county governments in New York State?
That's a good question. I think it would be great if that were the case, and it's something that I think we hope to learn more about as this API is open to the world. I've heard of similar experiments on the federal level that are more in prototype mode as a way of exploring what frameworks for interoperable eligibility or screening systems might look like. But in our research, we haven't quite come across anything really like that. And if anyone here knows of anything like that, we'd love to know more about it. So.
How was the rules engine developed? Is that something that already existed for other screening? Like you're just leveraging something that existed for other screening things and it's the API to it? Or, and even so, like where does it come from?
Sure, that's a great question. So to give you a little bit more context, a lot of this work is based on the foundation of a replatforming and redesign of the Access NYC website. Previously, it was under the management of HRA. There was an opportunity a few years ago to separate the screening function from the general e-services that HRA provides with actually owning and managing the application process for programs like SNAP and cash assistance. And through that process, we basically saw the opportunity to use lightweight interoperable tools to reimagine and rebuild that existing infrastructure. And through that process, we took a much closer look at the input that is collected, the questions, doing a lot of math to see how might we ask the least number of questions to get a meaningful result, keeping in mind a scope of all these programs. And that's sort of a little bit of background of like where the infrastructure came from. We did all this work to build that. We did a lot of work to reorganize the content and keep it up to date with these rules. And so this is really just an early step for us to share the hard work that we've done and will continue to do so that others might benefit from it.
So I work at an anti-poverty organization where we do lots of screenings. And so looking at this, I'm just trying to figure out if this will at some way make us more efficient. So if you can pre-populate the forms or do something where you can integrate it yet keep confidential, since if any of this you're keeping, we wouldn't be able to use you because we're attorneys, so we have to worry about privilege and confidentiality.
Yeah.
But if you could pre-populate the forms where like it makes our jobs easier, that would be useful. If you're just saying here's a list, that's kind of less useful.
Right, right.
That is an interesting use case and something that our team is exploring as we think about different types of lightweight online applications, frameworks. Like how might we just like repurpose information that is being entered into a form or taken through a screening process and used to be applied for other purposes to save people time. But we are finding it is a very complex question to ask because it really depends on like what is that information being used for and how is it going to be used, and is that the right information to use?
Well, some of your stuff, like I saw you have screen 3 on there.
Yeah.
You essentially had all the information other than the individual's names to fill out the screen 3 form. So like some of those are very simple. Stuff with the HRA is more complicated.
Right.
So.
Yeah. We're exploring some of those ideas. Yeah. Cool. So I want to leave a little bit more space for, it seems like we've gone into the questions. Before we wrap up and have a little bit more space for conversation, I want to first thank you for coming to our session and participating in this exercise and learning about the upcoming API. You can sign up for launch news at bit.ly/screening_API. If you have interesting ideas that you want to explore further, if you know of people that would benefit from this, if you know of people that we should be talking to, I'd love to talk with you after the session, or you can email us. If you like the work that we're doing, we have jobs available on our job site. I'd also like to give a thanks to our liaisons. They help us maintain and manage all this information. Helena Mohammed, who is our business analyst and resident programs expert. The NYC Opportunity Team, past and present. Web Intensive, who was our development partner through this process. Do It. They've told us that they love working with us because they get to try out new technologies and develop policies around them. As we have heard, we're the first agency using AWS cloud services, and we're the first team in the city, at least, to begin developing a dynamic API using Amazon-related tools. The NYC Open Data Portal and team. Some of this information will also be accessible through the NYC Open Data Portal when we launch. And Councilman Ben Callis, who has really supported our work around thinking about and acting on what comprehensive benefits access might look like. So again, thanks everyone for coming. And I'm happy to hang out and chat a little bit more about your ideas, as well as to maybe dive into some nitty-gritty API questions. So yeah, thanks everyone.